All right, today we're going to go over the lessons on intervals, just to make sure everyone understands this. So I'm going to musictheory.net and lessons. Then we're going to start with generic intervals. The interval measures the distance between two notes, and all of this is on here that you can read yourself. Generic intervals. An interval that is on the same exact line or space is called a first or a prime. So here's three different examples of that. This is on the same exact line, same exact space, same exact line. Right? This is still a first, even if it has an accidental on it. This is still a first, even if it has an accidental. These accidentals will come later. We'll understand these in specific intervals. There's different types of first, but you'll always want to figure out what the generic interval is first. So this is a first. When we go to seconds, seconds are from a line or space to the very next line or space. So we would count 1, 2. It's not like with half steps where you count this as the first step. So we'd count this as 1 and this is 2. Same thing with thirds. You're going up 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. You get the fourths, same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifths, sixths, sevenths, eighths or octaves, right? And here they are in line. So I hope that you understand that. First, you start with the first note as 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You could keep going past that. So if I went up to this line here, that would be a 9th, a 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and so forth. All right, we're going to go back and we're going to look at specific intervals. If I can find those, there we go. All right, specific intervals. When you do specific intervals, when you are on the exercises portion of it, if you look up here to the top, there's a keyboard, and when you push that, it brings up a keyboard so that you can count up from whatever you're on. I'm going to close that out for now, and I'll show you how to do the exercises on this. So there are different types of seconds. So here's a second, but there are 2 half steps. And in half steps, you don't count the first one, you count the number of steps. So this isn't 1, 2, 3, this is 1, 2. So that is from C to D, you have 1, 2 half steps. Two half steps is a major second. If I go from E to F sharp, that's also 2 half steps. 1, 2. Right, here's a major third. So we're going up 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's another major third. 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. Perfect fourth is 5 half steps. Here's a different perfect fourth. We count from F up to B flat. So F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we know that it's a fourth because we go 1, 2, 3, 4. So you find the generic interval first, and then you count the number of half steps, and that will tell you what type of interval it is, or the specific interval. So we know that it's a fourth. If it were 6 half steps, so if this was a B natural, then it would go up to here, and it would be 6 half steps. So that would change the type of fourth. Then it would be an augmented fourth. So knowing the generic interval first, 1, 2, 3, 4, tells me that it's a fourth. And then counting the specific number of half steps will tell you what type it is. Here's a perfect fifth. So we know that it's a fifth because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that tells us this number. And then we count the number of half steps. So we go from C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to G. And we know that it is a perfect fifth. Here's another perfect fifth. We know that it's a fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have this number here. And then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is a perfect fifth. We go to major sixth with his 9 half steps. We know it's a sixth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we count the number of half steps, which are 9. Again, you don't count this as 1 when you're counting half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we know that is a major sixth. Here's another major sixth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you count up 9 half steps. Major seventh is 11 half steps. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you count the number of half steps. If there's 11, then it's a major seventh. Here's another major seventh, same process. And you have an octave, which is 12 half steps. So when you go from one note to the exact same note, an octave up, that's 12 half steps. So we know an eighth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we count 12 half steps, and that is an octave. All right, so major and perfect is what we've looked at so far. We have major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and octave. Now, there's also minor type intervals. So minor means less than major. It's a half step less. So if we go a minor third, a major third was 4 half steps. A minor third is only 3 half steps. It's still a third because we have 1, 2, 3, but then it's only 3 half steps. And this sounds like, as you review these, if you go on the site, you can play what each one's, right? Here's another minor third, 1, 2, 3. So we know it's a third. And then it's 3 half steps. And it would sound, right? Augmented means that it's higher or a bigger gap than perfect or major. So augmented means it's going to have more half steps. So a perfect fourth had 5 half steps. It's still a fourth because 1, 2, 3, 4. But then there's 6 half steps. And this is going to have a weird sound to it. Right? So we know it's a fourth because we count the lines and spaces. And we know it's an augmented fourth because it's 6 half steps instead of 5. Here's another augmented fourth. Still has sound. Right? So we've looked at augmented. So augmented is wider than a major. Diminished, well, this is an augmented sixth. So a major sixth has 9 half steps. An augmented sixth would have 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We know it's a sixth. An augmented sixth would have 10 half steps rather than 9. Right, here's another augmented sixth. We know it's a sixth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's got 10 half steps. Diminished means that it's going to be less. So a perfect fifth was 7 half steps. A diminished fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is going to be 6 half steps. If you notice, a diminished fifth, this same sound, this same number of half steps, was the same as an augmented fourth. It's the same space, but depending on what we call this, if I call this an F sharp, then these 6 half steps would be an augmented fourth. But because we're going from C to G, these same 6 half steps, if I call this a G flat instead of an F sharp, and the G flat is here, that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rather than 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a diminished fifth. It's the same sound as an augmented fourth. It's just called a different name because of where this note sits, or what we call this note. This is another example, same thing, going from B to F. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we call this an E sharp, it would be an augmented fourth, but because we call this an F, it's 5 steps apart, or it's a generic interval of a fifth, but it's a diminished fifth. Same sound. It's got that weird sound to it. Minor intervals can be diminished by subtracting a half step. So if it is a shorter distance between it, then it would be diminished if it's the same type of generic interval. All right, a C to a B is a major seventh, or 11 half steps. C to a B flat is a minor seventh, 10 half steps. So if I go from C to B, that's 11. That is a major seventh. If I go from C to B flat, it'd be a minor seventh. Right? If I go one less than that, if I call it a B double flat, then it becomes diminished. It's less than a minor. Right? So B natural would be, C to B natural would be major seventh. If we went C to B flat, it would be a minor seventh. C to B double flat would be a diminished seventh. All of these notes can have more than one name depending on how you write them. So we would normally call this an A, but in this case, because it's written as a B double flat, we would call this a B double flat rather than A. Same note, same frequency, just a different name for it. If we went up here and called this a B sharp, we went from C to B sharp, then it would be an augmented seventh. So that also is an octave, C to C, but if we called it a B sharp, then we would have to call it an augmented seventh. That doesn't happen very often, but you may see that from time to time. All right, so this is a chart of half steps, right? In a first. So if I go from one note to the same note, there is no diminished first, there is no minor first, there's a perfect first and an augmented first. Augmented first would mean if it had an accidental on it. So if you go from C to C, that's a perfect first. If I go to C sharp, or C to C flat, that is called an augmented first. Okay? Intervals can go up or down. Second, okay, a diminished, this is the number of half steps. So a diminished second, if I go from F sharp to G flat, that is actually the same pitch with two different names. So that would be called a diminished second. I know that's weird, but that's the way it works. Okay, so an F sharp, and if I have a note on the space, so I'll pull up the piano here. If I have a note on this and I call it F sharp, and then on the next note, I write it on the line with a flat. If I write this on the space with a sharp, and then the next note on the line with a flat, that would be a diminished second. That means there's no half steps. It's the same note, but it's written on two different lines. I know that can be a little bit confusing. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, if I go up one half step, so if I go from F sharp to G natural, then that would be one half step. There is no perfect. We don't call seconds perfect. We call them major, minor, augmented, and diminished. So if we go up two half steps, so if I start on an F and I go up to G, that would be two half steps. That would be a major second. Or I could go down two half steps. So if I went from F down to E flat, that would be a major second down. Augmented second would be three half steps up. So if I went from the space of F and on the line of G, if I had a G sharp, that would still be a second because I'm going from a space to a line, but then I have three half steps in that. So this is a chart of all of your intervals, and you could print this out. You could have this up while you're looking at it, and this would help you. So if you count first, you want to count up the number of lines and spaces, and then you would figure out how many of these half steps there are. So I'm going to go in and go to the exercises and do a couple of these interval identifications. So first of all, you want to customize this and bring this down so you're not dealing with so many ledger lines. Doesn't really matter where it is here. Clefs, that's fine. Any of the clefs. Key signatures are fine. So all of that's good. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I know this is some sort of eighth. So it's either going to be an augmented eighth, a perfect eighth, or a diminished eighth. If I go up, just trying to see how I could pull in the piano on here. And I don't see that it's pulling it in. So you might want to print up the piano or draw it out to have it next to you so you can do this. But I'll do it in my head. If I go from F to F sharp, that's 1, to G is 2, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, which is C, D sharp, E, and F. So that's actually 11 half steps. And if you notice here, if I go from F sharp, because it's an F sharp in the key signature, up to F natural, then that's going to be less than an octave. So if we go, here's a regular octave, and here is less than an octave. So I'm going to click diminished eighth. Okay. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4. I know this is a fourth, so my choices are either perfect fourth, augmented fourth, or diminished fourth. I know that a perfect fourth is 5 half steps. So if I go from B up to C, which is 1, C sharp, D, and then E flat. Okay, that is only 4 half steps. So that is not a perfect fourth, that is a diminished fourth. Right? Here, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. So I know from C to E, I'm going to go from C to C sharp to D sharp to E. So C up to D up to D sharp, and then from D sharp to E. So that is 3. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. C to C sharp, that's 1. C sharp to D is 2. D to D sharp is 3. And D sharp to E is 4. So that is 4 half steps. That's a major third. Right? This is a lot easier if you have that printout of the piano in front of you. And you can do that. You can find a printout of a piano keyboard anywhere, or you can draw one out. After I do a few of these, I'm going to go up here. You can reveal answer if you want, if you get stuck on it, but I prefer that you not do that. I'm going to go up here. If I mess up, and if you keep going, so if I'm supposed to do 20 and I do 40, you're just going to keep, your score is not going to get better. This 100%, it's never going to get to 100%. So if you mess up and you want a better score, you can go up here and reset your score, and it takes you back, shows that you've done 0, but you can get a better score that way. When you're done with that, go to Show Progress Report, sign the progress report with your full name so that I know who you are. You sign the report and you copy the link. Don't go up here and copy this. When you send this to me up here, then all it does is take me to these exercises. So you want to copy the link or copy the code, and either way, copy that and then paste it into Edsby. And I will use this score on the progress report. So if I go on the progress report and I miss several, and I send it in, I do show progress report, it's going to show that you tried 5 of them, but you got 0 right. And this is the grade that I'm going to put in for your score. So if this is not good, if you don't like this score, don't send it to me. Go back up here and reset your score and try again. It may take you a few tries. I'm trying to keep the number of these down. So I'm not giving you 100 at a time, because that would take forever until you really grasp it. I'm just giving you a few at a time. So if you mess up, you can go back and redo it, and it won't take you that long. I'll make some more videos as we go, hopefully to show you how to do all this stuff. But until then, I miss you guys, and I hope that you're doing well. And I look forward to the time that we can come back together and have choir again.